I mean, for people that don't know, you're here in London, you grew up in London, when you're 16, you kind of you had some hard times. You lost a couple friends to death, I think a car accident and some gang violence, and it sounded like you were turning into a bit of a punk yourself. How did you get from there to becoming a monk? Maybe bring people up to speed, because not many young men do that. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, maybe like 0.01% of people maybe. And
Okay.
and again, I was in that same 0.01%. I grew up as what I would consider a good, obedient son until the age of 14. I followed the rules, I checked the boxes, I did my best at school, I was respectful at home. And I got to a point where it wasn't satisfying to just be good for the sake of being good. Now in hindsight, I realize I felt like I needed a purpose and meaning in my life to apply that goodness to. So being good for being good's sake was not good enough. And at the same time, at that time, because I was young and 14, I didn't know what meaning and purpose were. So I saw it as seeking a thrill. And I was looking for a thrill in life. And thrill came through adventure sports. It came through getting involved in punk-like activities, as you said. Thrill comes from doing all the wrong things or the bad things when you're growing up because they're forbidden. And I think there's something about that forbidden fruit that makes you feel like you're discovering something. And so now in hindsight, I realized what I was really looking for was discovery and meaning and purpose. But at the time, it took the form of thrill and, irrelevant activities and the wrong actions. And so seeing that path and getting a glimpse of it, I also realized that being bad for being bad's sake didn't work out either. So on one extreme, being good for being good's sake didn't work. And on the other side, being bad for being bad's sake didn't work either. And I was consistently seeking that deeper fulfillment. And to me, the opening is what you do so wonderfully with your show. And what I believe so many creators today are trying to do is we have to allow ourselves to be exposed to people with counterintuitive ideas or alternative ways of life that we've never been exposed to. So if you think about any generation today, they're exposed to athletes, actors, singers, musicians, business people. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if you never really get to the depths of the people behind the people, or if you never get exposed to any other ideas, you start thinking that life is about a finite number of options and a finite number of paths. And so while I was on that path of thinking, like when I was growing up, the most celebrated thing to be in the world of business was an investment banker. Like if you were a hedge fund manager or an investment banker, you had made it. And I had no interest in investment banking or hedge fund management. But because that's what I saw in society, I was thinking that that's what I'll probably graduate and do. So while I was at university, I was always fascinated to go and hear speakers, whether it was entrepreneurs, CEOs, celebrities. And that was a time, I guess, when I was at university, it was 2007 to 2010. There wasn't a ton of content on these topics readily available like there is today. And so you'd actually have to turn up in person. And I was fascinated by people who went from nothing to something. I've always been fascinated by rags to riches stories. And I remember the first books I ever read were David Beckham's autobiography and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's autobiography. And I just loved how much pain and struggle they'd been through. And I loved learning about how they navigated their challenges. I loved learning about how David Beckham used to, every weekend when his friends were out partying and out doing their thing, he would be in the park practicing how to take free kicks. And I valued that. I valued the level of sacrifice that it took. And so I was already into that. And then I was invited to hear a monk speak. And I was thinking, what has a monk achieved? Like, what am I going to learn from a monk? And I genuinely had that limiting punk-like belief that what can I learn from a monk? And my friends who were getting more involved in spirituality and meditation, they were the ones encouraged me to come along. And I said, well, I'll only go if we go to a bar afterwards. And the reason why I shared that is I want people to realize the state of my consciousness at the time. I did not grow up spiritual or religious. I didn't grow up as a monk. I didn't grow up like an angel. I was just a normal guy growing up in London. And that was what I said to my friends. They agreed because they're good friends and they knew what would happen, I guess. And I turn up having very low expectations of hearing this monk speak. And it's the irony of life that you go there expecting nothing and you find everything. And when I say that, what I mean is there was a slightly captivating energy. And I've heard people say this about other monks and teachers that they've met as well. Like, I think I read somewhere that Julia Roberts said it when she first saw a picture of Neem Karoli Baba, who was involved, you know, people like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and others have been involved in his teachings and his traditions. And there was that captivating element, and you're wondering what it is, because here in front of me was standing an Indian man from India in robes, wasn't externally like attracting me as I would be attracted to the opposite sex, but I was having the same sort of draw and pull towards what he was saying. And what he was saying was like opening out and penetrating my heart. And he was saying that our gifts and skills are wasted if they're not used in the service of others. And that was the first time I'd ever heard about service and compassion and love. And I was just like, not only does that start to resonate, he also just has this captivating presence. And I start going, I want that. Like, I want to be around that. And so I remember now that, you know, when I was 18 in my life, I'd met people who were rich. I'd met people who were famous. I'd met people who were beautiful. I'd met people who were strong and powerful. But I don't know if I'd met anyone who was truly happy and content. And that day I felt that he, who I still have a relationship with now, I really felt that he was happy and content. And I started to feel that that may be looking for that deep meaning and purpose in life, may be actually the path that I haven't yet trodden. So that's kind of how that whole journey began.